A book written in the 1700s entitled The Critical Review or Annals of Literature confirms that the words Negro, Jew, and Black Portuguese were used interchangeably. Here's an excerpt. King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to other Portuguese settlements in the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called, and the Jews in Loango, who are despised even by the very Negroes, are descended. Wait a minute. Negro, Jew, Black Portuguese, descended from the Negroes, West Africa. Wake up. These are the same Hebrews who were shipped to the Americas during the slave trade. In a 1600s book called America, being an accurate description of the New World, the author documents that Negro Jews had been forced from Portugal and shipped to Guinea, Angola, and St. Thomas, all of West Africa. Why? Because they refused Roman Catholicism. It was from West Africa that the same Black Negro Jews were shipped to the Americas. Here's an excerpt describing the acts of John III, King of Portugal. For he sent new inhabitants who settled in Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island St. Thomas, that so they might be better used to the air. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion, and caused their children to be baptized, from whom coming thither in great number, most of the present inhabitants were descended. Wake up. In a 1969 memorandum for the president, Henry A. Kissinger, the National Security Advisor, quotes, "The Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa, that gifted, aggressive, westernized, and at best envied and resented, but mostly despised by the mass of their neighbors in the Federation." On January 2022 of this year, the Jewish Rabbinate of the Obadiah Alliance have declared that the Igbos of Nigeria are descendants of ancient Israelites. According to them, the presence of Israelites along the Niger River had been known by Jewish authorities in the United Kingdom and other European nations for a while. And they support the idea that there was contact between European Jewish communities and the Igbo Israelites. All of the correspondence from the aforementioned rabbinic authorities addressed the Igbos as the brethren of the children of Israel. Accordingly, there is no doubt of their origins. Transatlantic slave ship manifests were filled with Igbo Israelites. An 1800s book entitled A Tribute to the Negro by Wilson Armstead reads as follows. A remarkable fact in the history of Loango in the Empire of Congo is that the country, according to a statement which was fully credited by Oldthorpe, himself a writer of most correct judgment and of unimpeachable veracity, contains many Jews settled in it who retain their rights, which keeps them isolated from other nations. Though thus separate from the African population, they are black and resemble the other Negroes in every respect as to physical appearance. It is probably an allusion to this case that Pennington in his textbook says the descendants of a colony of Jews originally from Judea settled on the coast of Africa are black. Their teeth are generally good. Their hair is woolly. The Portuguese who planted themselves on the coast of Africa a few centuries ago have been succeeded by descendants blacker than many Africans. In a 1600s book entitled A New Voyage to Italy, it describes the Portuguese Jews. He said it's a vulgar error that the Jews are all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese Jews, who marrying always among one another beget children like themselves, and consequently the swarthiness of their complexion is entailed upon their whole race, even in the northern regions. But the Jews who are originally of Germany, those, for example, I have seen at Prague, are not blacker than the rest of their countrymen. Why are they not blacker than the rest of their countrymen? In an 1800s book entitled History of the Jews confirms that the German Jews are converts. It states that the 8th century is celebrated by Jewish writers for converting Khosar, a pagan prince, to their belief. Khosar became dissatisfied with the religion of his people, was initiated into the belief and ceremony of the Jews, converted his subjects, and then sent for the most learned men of the original Jews to instruct his people. people. An 1800s book, What is Truth, by Ebenezer Burgess, says that the Jews who remained in the Jordan Valley after successive conquerors of Syria for ages were described as being as black as any of the Ethiopian races. Also in year 110 CE, Roman historian Tacitus wrote, "Many assure us that the Jews are descended from those Ethiopians who were driven by fear and hatred to immigrate from their home country when Cepheus was king." Jewish sociologist Georges Freeman, in his book, The End of the Jewish People, pointedly states that the Europeans who are claiming to be Jews are nothing more than Hebrew-speaking Gentiles. The late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, stated on television, "You, the Jews, will never be able to live here in peace because you left here black and you came back white. We cannot accept you."
How do we know Jesus wasn't black? He could have been from the lost tribe of Israel. They were supposed to be black.
I bet they were. If ever people were lost, we're it.
What the scriptures say about the appearance of the Jews. Solomon in the book of Lamentation describes the Jews when they are going through a famine. In Lamentation, he says their visage is blacker than a coal. He also says our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. Job 30:30 says, "My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat." The bride in the Song of Solomon says, "Look not up on me because I am black, because the sun has looked up on me." She also says, "I am black but comely, O you daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon." What do the tents of Kedar and the curtains of Solomon look like? They are made from the hair of the black Angora goats. In Revelations 1:15, Yeshua says his feet are like unto fine brass, as if they were burned in a furnace. What does brass burned in a furnace look like? Why does it matter? Because truth always matters. The two elements required for a true worshiper is spirit and truth. They that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. A 700 AD rabbinic Hebrew writing declares that both Shem and Ham were black. This writing, entitled The Chapters of Rabbi Eleazar the Great, declares he especially blessed Shem and his sons, making them dark but comely. He blessed Ham and his sons, making them dark like a raven. He blessed Japheth and his sons, making them entirely white. The famed Muslim historian Al-Tabari, who died in year 923, agreed with this assessment. In his writings, The History of the Messengers and Kings, he declares that Allah gave both the children of Shem and Ham a black complexion, and that he gave the children of Japheth a light and very fair skin complexion. This is why the Zondervan Bible Dictionary declares that Ham became the progenitor or the ancestor of the dark races, but not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites, because true biblical scholars know that present-day Negroes are Jews who descended from Shem and not Ham. What did the original Jews of London and Amsterdam actually look like? In a 1600s book entitled Travels in Holland, the Jews of Amsterdam are described in this manner. Their men are most black, full of hair, and insatiably given unto women. In a 1700s book by John Mackey, a man of London, England, named Daniel, Earl of Nottingham, who happened to be the Secretary of State, is described as a tall, thin, very black man, like a Spaniard or a Jew. In an 1800s book by Robert Knox, the London Jew is described as having lips very full, mouth projecting, chin small, and the whole physiognomy, when swarthy, as it often is, has an African look. James Shapiro, a professor at Columbia University, states in his book that when Minister Robert Kirk visited a London synagogue in 1690, all 200 Jewish worshippers at the synagogue were black men. According to the Jewish Virtual Library, the first Jews to settle in India were the black Jews of Cochin in southern India, around 1000 BC during the time of King Solomon. This same source claims the Pardesi or white Jews settled in India around 2500 years later. An 1800s book documents another group of black Jews were placed on the coast of Malabar during the Babylonian captivity and reign of Nebuchadnezzar around 600 BC. These black Jews still contained records of their actual history written on sheets of red goatskin. The Jewish Virtual Library goes on to say the black Cochin Jewish community was completely destroyed during the Portuguese conquest in 1523 during the Spanish and Portuguese Inquisition.